what we do here is I read this paper. We try to explain the paper, what's good about it, what's bad about it, whatever. And it's my first time reading it, so I don't know what's going to happen. And we just find out. This is Does Hope Require Belief by Michael Milona. I believe they're out of Toronto Metropolitan University. It's an American Philosophical Quarterly. And at the end of the paper, we give it a ranking. So if you are in chat, when we get done with this, we give it a rank. We use emotes, and you can, emote spam, and that will give it, I make a number up out of the emote spam, but whatever. It just is a tagging mechanism. So like we vote with tags, basically. So cool. Here we go. Introduction. And they already started off with like a 0. So they don't even, they're very technical there. They count from 0. Which used to be Ryerson. Oh, really? Okay. But they changed the name so that we could confuse it with the University of Toronto. Yeah, excellent. Here in Westchester, New York, there used to be Westchester Business Institute. And so Westchester Business Institute was actually, or is actually, a legit school. Like, if you want to get like a master's in business, you could go to Westchester Business Institute. But then a few years ago, there were all these other like fake business institutes, so they changed their name to College of Westchester, which it sounds fine, but it's like the market in like fake business degrees just like shot up, and so they didn't want to sound like all the fake degree places because they were a legit place that you could actually go study business. But like, yeah, so there's definitely some marketing to in a name. Okay, according to the standard account of hope, a person S counts as hoping that P, if and only if and because S desires that P, and 2, S believes that P has a probability between 0 and 1 of obtaining. Okay, so, so there's a chance of it happening, and it's not impossible, and it's not certain. You just don't know. It's just not certain and not impossible, and you want it to happen. That sounds okay. That's the thing you hope for. Regarding 1, it doesn't seem as if we can hope for what we do not want. But at the same time, hope is not a mere wish. A Star Trek fan may wish to engage in intergalactic diplomacy. Really? Is that what we want in Star Trek? If you're in Aris's Discord, is that really what is going on in the Star Trek channel? I don't think it's diplomacy. But they do not hope for this to happen unless they take it to be possible. Like, yeah, I guess that's fair. It needs to be possible to do it before you actually think you're going to do it. Despite its intuitive appeal, the standard account is now widely criticized. Nowadays, there are nearly as many distinct theories of hope as there are philosophers writing about hope. This disagreement, however, exists against the backdrop of a remarkable consensus. In particular, nearly everyone agrees that belief and desire are necessary for hope. I have myself previously endorsed such a requirement. Nevertheless, the aim of this paper is to raise doubt about the necessity of belief. The view that hope requires belief is at odds with some forms of recalcitrant hope and certain ways in which hope patterns similarly to other emotions. I explain at the end why it matters whether hope requires belief. Yeah, so the question is, do you have to believe it to be, like, what do you have to believe? Can you just hope for something that you don't actually believe is true, or maybe that you don't even... Excuse me. Yeah, what do you actually mean by belief then? Because there's a few different ways to parse belief. Like, do you have to assume it's possible? Like, do you have to believe that? Or can it just be some sort of background assumption that you never think about that is just like logically possible according to the other things you do believe, but like it may not be a belief in itself that you have? Viper says, I hope Margot Robbie will notice you someday. Sure, but with disgust or with admiration? Maybe it doesn't matter to you. Yeah. I will say, what was her name? God damn it. She was in Austin Powers Goldmember or something. Heather Graham. I saw Heather Graham in person one day. That is the only time my jaw actually dropped to the floor. Like, I literally had to pick my own jaw up. She walked right by me. I think I might have been like, teenager or something at the time. Well, like, holy fuck. But yeah. So, not Margot Robbie, but Heather Graham. Seems like you have to believe that the things you hope for is at least theoretically possible. Yeah, but unreal. I think what this author is going for is what what counts as like theoretically? Do you have to think about it and you have to actually have the belief, or is it just some sort of like assumption that is like some prerequisite, like theoretically as a prerequisite, or do you actually have to thinking about it, which is like something else? Like, do you actually have to, like, I could think about like Margot Robbie noticing vipers, like, and I could believe that happening, but it also, I've never thought about it until right now, but like that was technically not something that was impossible. It was just not something I had ever considered. Yeah. So Heather Graham I was going to a play or something with my grandma, and I was very early. I was waiting outside some off-Broadway theater, and I'm just sitting there like waiting, and this, like, leaves the theater, walks right in front of me, and I'm not kidding, I had to like literally use my hand to push my jaw back up. And I didn't realize like what it was until I saw that she was going to be in a play there in a few weeks after what we were seeing like ended. Yeah. Oh, you're pressing an example of an unfounded hope. Well, I think in terms of like this thing about like being in Star Trek, you have to believe in like science fiction levels of technology, and so we have no reason to think that faster than light travel is possible. And so it's like, well, that would be unfounded, because if you have intergalactic diplomacy, you need to be able to travel between galaxies, and we have no physical way of doing that on the scales that they do. So it's like, that would be an impossible sort of a currently physically impossible sort of thing. So yeah. So I think that's why they brought up this, even though it wasn't very clear what they were talking about in Star Trek. But like this intergalactic, like this issue here, this intergalactic is really the problem, because we have no way of going intergalactic and being in the timescales to do diplomacy. We need to find the spice. Yeah. The spice must flow. Okay. Preliminary remarks, recalcitrant emotions. Hope is regularly classed alongside other emotions, yet much of the literature on hope treats it largely in isolation. Adrian Martin is explicit about this methodology. Such an approach is understandable, for as Martin points out, it is arguable that emotions cannot be captured within a single theory. Yet isolating hope risks overlooking insights from the literature on emotions that could help us to better understand hope. Fair. Is hope an emotion? I don't know. Star Trek isn't intergalactic, it's interstellar. Okay, fair. I apologize for my non-nerdiness in Star Trek. But I think the point still holds. And they said galactic here. Like, they said galactic. Galactic. This is galactic. So they are wrong in their Star Trek lore. But, yeah. Get it right. Yeah, I'm first to die. Exactly, Vipers. But, yeah, but the point still holds. We have no current way of traveling in a way that would allow us to do diplomacy at the scale that they do using our current tech. So yeah. Adam says, but the characters of Star Trek fleet hope to engage in diplomatic tactics either way. Yeah, but that's the question. The question Vipers brought up was, what would be some unfounded hope? Well, there's no way we could currently do the sort of things they do, given our current understanding of physics. So there is no ground for the possibility of what they do. So that might be considered an unfounded hope. Now, if we ever discover a way to, was it tachyon particles and like have a warp drive, then yeah, maybe we could think about this. But as of right now, it's sci-fi. Okay. Yeah, so again, we have to better understand hope, maybe in terms of an emotion. Author argues that one key dialectic from the literature suggests that hope does not always require belief. Making this argument requires a bit of a setup, however, which is the focus of this section. To begin, consider so-called judgmentalist theories of emotions. Judgmentalists maintain that emotions essentially involve evaluative judgments or beliefs. So, for instance, fearing that P might be thought to essentially involve a belief that P is dangerous. Likewise, a person's anger towards S might be thought to essentially involve a belief that S wronged them. Analyzing emotions in terms of an evaluative belief is attractive insofar as it can explain the way in which our emotions can be appropriate or inappropriate depending on their objects. Yeah, so there's something that you're emotional at, That's fair. It's like, yeah. It's like, you're like afraid that something is dangerous, so you have an emotion directed. It's a directed thing. Okay, yet judgmentalism faces a well-known problem arising from the fact that our emotions are often recalcitrant. An emotion is recalcitrant when it persists in the face of conflicting evaluative judgments. For example, a person who fears flying on a plane may not believe that flying on a plane is dangerous. In the face of such internal conflicts, judgmentalists can maintain their view only by positing contradictory evaluative beliefs. Yeah, so you may be afraid of flying, but you also may know that flying is way safer than many other things you do, and you're not afraid of those other things, and so why are you afraid of flying? Fair. Okay, but it seems to many philosophers that recalcitrant emotions do not involve such an extreme form of irrationality. Adam says presuppositions would be at play, like as you mentioned, fleshing out possible logical situations. Yeah, and I think that's where this paper is just going. Like, I think that's the whole point of this paper, is to talk about hope and to like flesh out some of these situations. Yeah. So we have to see. They haven't made any claims yet that are interesting. They're just talking about the state of the art. The trick is to make sense of conflicts between emotions and belief that, as Bennett Helm puts, do not verge on incoherence, for they are readily intelligible and often happen all too often. End quote. For even if we grant that recalcitrant emotions are irrational, which is a matter of some dispute, they aren't irrational in the manner of believing P and believing not P, or transparently entails not P. As Hakim Nar observes, the trouble with judgmentalist theory is that the incoherence it ascribes to recalcitrant emotions is so deeply counterintuitive. Yeah, it's like everyone understands like a fear of heights or a fear of flying. Like, you, even if you know the safety records of like flying, the idea that you're on a plane and you're doing something that you have no control over, and it's like if something goes wrong, you're fucked. It's like, well, okay, it's very rare, but it's also a different situation than like crossing the street in a busy city. May be more dangerous, but you also have a lot more control over that situation. So it's not so counterintuitive that people are afraid of flying. It's like people need to have some sort of sense of control over their lives, and you lose that when you just are on a giant like box in the sky. Okay. This problem of recalcitrance hasn't led philosophers to give up on the idea that emotions involve some kind of evaluation. One popular alternative says that emotions involve perceptual-like, non-doxastic experiences of value. So doxastic just means belief. So non-belief experiences of value. This approach treats recalcitrant emotions on the model of perceptual illusion. For example, a person confronted with a Muller-Lyon illusion may experience one line longer than the other. The Muller-Lyon is this thing. This is the Muller-Lyon illusion for people who don't know off the top of their head. So, like, the idea is that, like, this right here, like the straight parts of the line are supposed to be exactly the same, but depending on the way the arrows are, it makes you feel like one's longer than the other. Okay. Yeah, so you might still believe they're the same length. Yeah, like, so you get the idea. Similarly, a person may experience flying on a plane as dangerous fear while believing that it is safe. Perceptualism is not the only view according to which emotions involve non-doxastic evaluations. However, we needn't determine the best theory here. Yeah, so you may believe that the straight parts of the non-arrowy parts of the line are the same length, but that doesn't mean you are not fooled in terms of how you perceive the world. Okay, what then does judgmentalism's decline have to do with whether hopes involve beliefs about the probability of the hoped-for outcome? I turn now to this connection. A parallel. Hopes can also be recalcitrant. Some recalcitrant hopes involve hoping for something that we believe to be bad. For instance, Luke Bovins describes someone who attends a car race and finds themselves hoping to see a violent crash, even though they believe a crash would be terrible. Yeah, I mean, it's exciting, but terrible. And they want the excitement then. In other cases, though, recalcitrant hopes are rooted in an insensitivity to considered beliefs about the probability of what we hope for. This can happen in two ways. A person hopes too little by their own lights for something they believe to be good and reasonably probable, or a person hopes too much by their own lights for something that, while good, they believe to be extremely unlikely. I suspect that hopes of type 1 and type 2 are the most common types of recalcitrant hope. But however common such forms of recalcitrance happen to be, their mere possibility generates a difficulty for the view that hope requires belief, a problem that is structurally analogous to the problem for judgmentalism. Yeah, so if you think something's super unlikely, but you really, really hope for it, well, why? Like, why do you really, really hope for it? Okay, it will be helpful to work with a pair of examples illustrating both 1 and 2 respectively. Okay, so championship quest. I guess this is the number 1. Jasmine hopes for her favorite team to finally win the championship. Yes, the Yankees got beat this year. That was unpleasant for us in New York. Congratulations to LA. They haven't won in her lifetime, but they have a decent team this year. The odds makers have put the team's chances at 5-1. That's great. She believes that these odds are accurate, but she nevertheless feels as if it almost certainly won't happen. Jasmine reports that she should feel better about her team's chances, hoping more fervently for victory. Fair. I mean, you have a record of loss, though, that goes into that sort of thing. So a 5-1 seems extremely good when you've had a losing team for so long. But yeah, I get the idea. Lucky Eights. As an amusing diversion, Jasmine often purchases $1 scratch-off tickets after work on Friday. But this Friday, she splurges buying one of the larger, more expensive tickets called Lucky Eights. She has had good luck historically with the number 8, and she also knows that the odds of winning large sums from a more expensive ticket are higher. She feels as if she very well might win big. Of course, she also knows that the chances of recouping even the money she spent to buy the ticket are low, and the chances of winning a huge amount of money are remarkably low. She tells herself that she should feel worse about her chances and hope less fervently to win big, perhaps leading her to not buy the ticket after all. Okay. If we were to ask her, Jasmine would say that she believes that she has much better odds of fulfilling her desire in Championship Quest than she does in Lucky Eights. This comparative belief is rooted in a reasonable assessment of the odds. Yet she feels as if she is more likely to win a significant prize from the lottery ticket than her favorite team is to win the championship. But she herself believes that she shouldn't feel this way and that the intensity of her hopes should change accordingly. Here, then, is the parallel with judgmentalism's problem of emotion theory. Consider a person who fears flying on a plane even while believing that it is safe compared to other forms of travel that they do not fear. The judgmentalist is forced to attribute an implausibly jarring irrationality to this person. They believe that flying on a plane is dangerous and also that it is not dangerous. A similar issue arises for those who take hope to involve a belief about the probability of the hoped-for outcome. In Championship Quest, for instance, Jasmine would need to believe both that her team has a decent chance of winning, 5-1 odds, and also that their odds are much worse than this. And in Lucky 8, Jasmine would need to believe that she has trivial odds of winning a sizable amount of money, and also believe that she has a decent odds of winning a sizable amount of money. But this doesn't match what such experiences seem to be like. Experiences such as Jasmine's aren't naturally described as cases of extreme rationality, namely of believing P while also believing that not P, or what one knows entails not P. See below for speculation what might be happening. Yeah. Well, this is extreme irrationality, I think should be said there, but whatever. Yeah, it's like, okay, so you know things are not what you feel about them, and this happens all the time. That's fair. Okay, the central argument can be summarized as follows. Did they need to just make it logically like this? Who knows, but they did. All right, P1. If recalcitrance is a problem for judgmentalism about emotion, and if Championship Quest and Lucky Eights are possible, then we have strong reason to believe that some hopes are not constituted by a belief about the probability of the hoped-for outcome. Recalcitrance is a problem for judgmentalism. Championship Quest and Lucky Eights are possible. Conclusion, we have strong reason to believe that some hopes are not constituted by a belief about the probability of the hoped-for outcome. Yeah, it's running off your emotions and how you feel about it, not the intellectual probabilities that you also know to be the case, or that are likely the case. The novel premises are 1 and 3. In the previous section, I briefly sketched some of the arguments in favor of 2. Readers seeking a more detailed account for the arguments of 2 should see the citations above, especially NAR 2018. Okay, family patterns. According to the present proposal, while some hopes may involve beliefs about the probability of what is hoped for, others do not. Yeah, it seems like you're just basing it off how you feel about the situation, which is It may involve probabilities, but need not necessarily do so. In this section, I explain why this result should not be surprising once we notice important similarities between hope and emotions such as fear. Yeah, that's what I was saying. You feel this stuff. I then tentatively explore the position that hope without belief can be conceptualized in terms of Tamar Gendler's notion of an A-leaf. Okay, so we got the A-leaf sort of stuff. Hope and fear typically come together as a package. When we fear that P, we typically also hope that not P. And similarly, when we hope that P, we also typically fear that not P. For example, in Championship Quest, Jasmine hopes that her team will win, and at least to some extent, but also fears that they won't. In fact, if Jasmine told us that she had no fear that they might lose, we might doubt whether she had hopes at all. That's a good point. We've got like a duel, hope and fear come together. That makes sense, you know? It's like, what do you mean you hope for it if you're not afraid of the opposite? I mean, even if you are sort of ambivalent about the opposite, like, well, they're not going to win and I don't care. Well, it's like, well, how much do you hope then? Well, you hope a little bit, but if you're straight up ambivalent, yeah, I don't know. Maybe you could be. But like why would you say you were hopeful that they'd win if you were at least not a little bit worried about them losing? You definitely don't want them to lose. So that could be said to be a kind of fear. Okay. Hope and fear also share another feature, namely that they both involve elements of subjective uncertainty. We can only fear what we suspect may happen or what may have happened. If something bad has happened, it no longer makes sense to say that we fear it. For instance, if my grandfather is gravely sick, I can fear that he will die soon. But if my grandfather has already passed and I fully accept that he has passed, then I can only grieve his death. But just as with hope, experiences of fear can apparently come apart from our beliefs about the probability of what we fear. Here's an illustration. Flat tire. Jacob is on a road trip to visit his parents. As he drives over an uneven section of highway, he fears that the bumpiness of the ride is due to a flat tire. On his last 2 trips, after all, he ended up getting a flat. Oh man, 2 trips he gets flat twice? That sucks. Although he can see that the section of road is uneven and fully believes that this explains the bumpiness, he can't shake the feeling that he may well have a flat. This feeling fans his fear. Okay, when it comes to emotions that involve subjective uncertainty, for example, hope, fear, anxiety, we can easily generate cases like flat tire, Championship Quest, and Lucky 8s, which indicate that beliefs about the probability outcomes can diverge from more primitive feelings about the future probabilities. The explanation for this in flat tire is familiar. Even though Jacob has inconsistent representations of the likely cause of the bumpy ride, the psychological tension here doesn't seem to be the sort of jarring and near unintelligible irrationality involved in maintaining a current contradictory beliefs. Yeah, I mean, so like people were afraid that Trump was going to win. You no longer are afraid that Trump is going to win. Trump has won. You may be afraid of what Trump is going to do, but that is different from being afraid he's going to win. You have to just accept that Trump has won the election because he has. So this is just this is a fair point on their on the author's side. It's just once something has happened, you do not hope or fear it. You hope or fear for something else. Okay, after all, in flat tire, Jacob is simply beset with the feeling that he likely has a flat and is unable to extinguish this feeling in light of the evidence. I mean, yeah, they have a footnote here. I don't know if you can see it, but you don't know exactly if your tire is flat. That's part of the thing about driving is you can't see the tire. I mean, you got a little tire indicator light, but like, come on. Like, those things go off a lot. Okay. I mean, it's really annoying. Tire pressure sensors are motherfuckers. Okay. And as we have seen, hope can likewise involve a sense of future prospects that we are passive in the face of, and for which agents do not appear rationally criticizable, or at least not rationally criticizable in the manner of belief. Yeah, I mean, you're just hoping that something happened. You know what the odds are, but you are wrapped up in it, and so whatever that wrapped up in it is, psychologically, not the same. So yeah. Okay. If there can be hopes without beliefs, as I have argued that there can be, yeah, like, so it's some other psychological thing, not that you believe the chances, but you have some psychological, block that keeps it there for whatever reason. As the author has argued there can be, then we face an obvious question, one which is analogous to a central question about the emotions. As noted above, philosophers working on emotions are interested in how emotions can involve evaluations that are not evaluative judgments or beliefs. Similarly, there is an underexplored question about the nature of non-doxastic probability assignment involved in hope. How then should we conceive of a probability assignment that is not belief? Here I sketch one direction in which we might go, keeping in mind that there may not be a univocal answer to this question and that different hopes may involve different forms of subjective uncertainty. Yeah, so I was saying before is that there's some psychological factor. What is the psychological factor of your fear that is not, that does not correspond to the likelihood of the actual outcomes? Okay. Yeah, I'm back. What's up, Anders? How you doing? To begin, consider Tamar Gendler's notion of an A-leaf. A person walking across Grand Canyon Skywalk may believe that they are entirely safe, but the glass bridge and a massive drop leads them to feel and behave in ways that are discordant with their beliefs. Again stated, but good to know. Well, thanks for stopping in. I appreciate it. An A-leaf is paradigmatically composed of three elements. A, the representation of some object or concept or situation or circumstance, perhaps propositionally, perhaps non-propositionally, perhaps conceptually, perhaps non-conceptually. B, the experience of some affective or emotional state. And C, the readying of some motor routine. Yeah. So what's this like readying of some motor routine? Like you feel something and then you feel like you have to do something. According to Gendler, the components of an A-leaf are associatively linked, meaning that they are systematically coactive when certain conditions are met. For this reason, A-leafs are more fruitfully described as a unit rather than as simply the co-occurrence of the different elements in A through C. In the Skywalk case, the agent believes that the bridge is safe, but A leaves that it is not. Yeah, so you get up there, you feel like you're standing above some big drop, and that feeling is like the A-leaf. It's not a belief, it's some psychological thing that is different, I guess. Maybe not psychological. I mean, it's just how you are reacting. As Gendler points out, dispositions to a leave may be rooted in evolutionary history, a leaving that the Skywalk is dangerous, or may be rooted in habits and cultural priming. For example, a leaving that drinking from a bedpan is disgusting, even if it is known to be clean. Yeah. So it's like, would you drink from like a chamber pot, even if it was like scrubbed clean? You might be like, yeah, I don't know if I want to. How good was that scrub? Gendler's notion of an A-leaf can help us begin to understand what is happening in cases such as Championship Quest and Lucky Eights. While the non-doxastic probability assignment is not itself an A-leaf, it is naturally treated as part of an A-leaf. Yeah, so you're getting ready to do something. And, this is interesting. On Discords I'm in, people are afraid of the way the laws are going to change in the U.S., and people are making plans in case, they have to go somewhere because they won't be able to get the medical attention that they are currently getting and that they want to be able to get. So it's like, will you have to move to get certain medical attention in the future? And that's a possibility based on, a lot of factors, really. But it's like, well, okay, you do have to start planning things out based on political wins. And so that's part of this thing. It's like, what are you going to do? This is planning is part of this. And people are already starting to discuss this now. And so like the readying of some motor routine, that's a planning thing. So it's like you have to start planning on how you're going to, get out of a bad situation. Okay. In Lucky Eights, for instance, Jasmine happened to have good fortune with the number 8, which triggers a persistent non-doxastic representation that she has a good chance to win big. This representation is bound up with desire generating hope, which in this case appears to satisfy the criteria for an A-leaf, insofar as the occurrent desire is affective and motivational. By contrast, in Championship Quest, a history of losing leads Jasmine to represent that her team very likely won't win, even though she believes that they have a relatively good chance. Such non-doxastic representations are rooted in how things have tended to be, while beliefs are more swiftly revisable in response to incoming evidence. So yeah, we've got a Bayesian theory where you say, okay, this is the updated thing, but then you also have the more visceral response based on, a different set of like physical, like how you physically react to stuff, or your personal history. Such A-leaf constituting representations are linked to affective and motivation in ways that are useful in helping us to navigate the world quickly, but can be frustratingly resistant to modification when off track. Yeah, so you've got heuristics. So you've got some heuristics, and then you've got the more like the analysis. So, we've got in sort of the contemporary lingo, type 1 and type 2 thinking. In Gendler's notion of a leaf, no new restrictions are thereby imposed on the content of the uncertainty dimension of hope. A hoper may represent the hoped for outcome as merely possible, or they may represent the outcome probabilistically. For instance, in Lucky Eights, Jasmine sees herself as having a good chance to win big, even if she isn't attaching a precise probability to her chances. The specifics of the content of these non-doxastic representations will plausibly depend upon the relevant history of the hoper. For example, if Jasmine has always won when purchasing similar tickets in the past, her hope may be rooted in a more confident assessment than if her track record is only slightly better than the odds predict. Yeah, I mean, if you always win, then you may just be an anomaly, but there may also be, a mistake in the printing of the tickets, and that's why when you go to the one place and you keep getting the tickets that were from the bad printing and you keep winning, it's like, well, maybe you're right. Like, maybe it isn't just an anomaly, it is that all those tickets are winners for you. So it's like, you might just be right. Okay, why does it matter? Whether the uncertainty in hope is that of belief matters for several reasons. First and most obviously, hope is an important but elusive phenomenon. Recent theories have tended to build on the standard model by adding additional requirements. But perhaps the standard account identifies a feature as necessary, belief, which is not ultimately required. Second, the present proposal can help us to better understand the political significance of hope. A central question in political theorizing about hope is as follows, quote, why and how does it matter from a perspective of democratic politics that citizens have or adopt certain hopes? End quote. One natural answer is that hope can motivate us to achieve difficult but valuable political projects. The losing of hope can likewise undermine our motivation. But what explains hope's special connection with motivation? According to the present view, hope often involves non-doxastic probability assessments that come packaged with affect and motivation in a way that beliefs do not. This insight affirms and deepens our understanding of the political power of certain forms of hope. And I think this is fair. Getting people motivated can get them to work together and do stuff. People working together may have different probabilities of outcomes than if everyone's working separately towards something. So working in a group will have a different probability if everyone's working together than if everyone's sort of like doing their own thing, even if they're all trying to go to the same goal. So it's like, well, how do you get people to work together? Well, you give them a common vision, and then all of a sudden they work together because they have a common vision. And so you are changing what is going on. And that's a fair point. So it's like the political power of hope is to organize people in a certain way to change the actual real probabilities of getting stuff done. And so, but to even get them to work together, they have to have that motivation, that hope that they can work together. And so it's like when they start off as individuals, that group dynamic is not there, but they have to be given this, and that could be, you give them the idea, then they come together. But when did the gatherers start to gather? The gatherers gathered when the gatherers got the idea of the gathering. So it's like sorry about the Heidegger, but once you got people to be motivated to get together, then you actually have objectively changed the probability of the outcome, because instead of individuals working towards a goal, you've got a group working towards a goal, and the group probability may be different. So, okay. Third, the present proposal may help us to understand the distinctiveness of hope relative to faith. Yeah, so I just mentioned Heidegger, who is technically not a religious thinker, but he is very much in that sort of, his dad was a preacher. He's in that sort of line. Like hope, faith has a desiderative element. We only have faith that P if we desire that P. Faith likewise has an epistemic dimension, but in distinction from hope, faith requires a greater measure of confidence than hope. As Elizabeth Jackson has pointed out, though this can make it seem as if hope is the younger sibling of faith. The worry is that hope is what is left. The worry is that hope is what we are left with when we aren't confident enough to maintain our faith. In an effort to capture the distinctiveness of hope, Jackson argues that hope has a stronger desiderative dimension. The present proposal suggests a distinction in the epistemic dimension too. Whereas faith arguably involves a belief of some sort, hoping need not involve a belief at all. Yeah, because you may not actually believe anything about it. You may just want something and some stuff. The Airbender taught you that hope is a lie. Well, that we should take Airbender as like canon. Adam says, if one had no prior betting history, yet had knowledge of winners, hope then in this case is based on probability, and the alias still remains about becoming a winner, as no personal knowledge of themselves winning exists. Disagree. I think that's right, Adam. Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah. But the whole point here is that if you did have some sort of experience, or you are importing some experience maybe that you shouldn't have, then this can still wrap you up in different ways. Like, you may think you are chosen by God to have a great future, and therefore your betting will all go correctly, even though you have no fucking reason to think that you have like you know anything based about like betting probabilities or whatever. You just may think you're chosen, and like you're insane, but like that would be some sort of weird hope that was involved there. Yeah. Okay, so lastly, whether hope involves a belief may matter for whether there is a moral virtue of hope. Consider, for instance, the standard view on which the attitude of hope is composed of a belief and a desire, perhaps ultimately among other things. According to Chris Bobier, I don't know. Sorry about how I say everyone's names. However, it is implausible that there is a single virtue governing both dimensions of hope. In particular, we can easily imagine agents who are disposed to desire what is good but do not make accurate probability assessments, and vice versa. According to Bobier, this is a problem for those who defend the existence of a moral virtue of hope. Quote, since there are two ways passionate hope can fail to be virtuous, this suggests that the passion of hope needs to be virtuously regulated along two separate dimensions. We need to be disposed to accurately identify what is possible and to what degree, and we need to be disposed to desire the right sort of objects to the right degree. Calling a disposition the virtue of hope misleadingly suggests that there is one virtuous disposition that regulates our passion of hope, which is not the case. End quote. Bobier may be right that the standard view of hope and theories which build on it doesn't leave room for a virtue of hope. But if certain hopes involve non-doxastic modes of uncertainty, then this changes the dialect. The dialectic, not the dialect. Yeah, there's some typos in this draft. After all, many other emotions involve similar non-doxastic assessment of future prospects and yet appear to be regulated by some distinctive moral virtue. For example, courage appears to regulate fear in dangerous situations. So perhaps there is a virtue of hope that governs hoping well in some other type of situation. The present proposal lays the groundwork for a more detailed exploration of this possibility, one which I pursue elsewhere. Yeah, so I guess it makes sense. If you think that your hopes are somehow tied up in your reactions, your planning, your psychology, then there's other things that are going into hope besides the probability. And that makes some sense. Like I was just saying earlier about how working in a group can change the outcomes, and so you have to, there's something psychological about working by yourself versus working with other people, and so there's like something else that could go on there, and how you govern your hopes may also be wrapped up in how you understand the working with other people, which, who knows what the probabilities of that are. So it's like there may be some wiggle room there. So I think that's a fair point from the author. Conclusion. Well, that may be not what the author said. I think I made a fair point, and it at least makes sense with what the author said. don't want to put words into the author's mouth. In sum, philosophers of hope have correctly identified hope as involving uncertainty. But we should not assume that this uncertainty takes the form of a belief unless we are prepared to commit to the following. 1. Recalcitrance is not a problem for judgmentalist theories of emotions. And 2. Other emotions which look to future possibilities, including fear and anxiety, also involve beliefs about the probability of outcomes. But neither 1 or 2 is attractive. I have briefly sketched a picture of how we might begin to conceive of hopes without beliefs, but my central aim has more modestly been to call this orthodoxy about hope into question. And look at that. Ryerson University, even though they changed the name in the final later on. So, okay. So, this was a nice little paper. I don't have, I'm not hating on this one. But as always, what we do here is we give this a review. So, if you are new here, what you do is, and if you are, see in chat below, if you do not have Better TTV the plugin installed, these are Better TTV emotes. If you just see the text in chat, you can just copy the text, but you can go and use the text as you see, over here. If you thought this was a fun paper and made your brain dance, you put the brain dance in. You have to capitalize the way it actually looks. If you have Better TTV, you can tab, and it'll get auto completed. If you thought it had existential or artistic drama, Nog Scream, or Boris for deep or ancient ideas, Nog Knife, slice and dice arguments, for analytic-y stuff, Nog Navel for navel gazing only for academics, Nog Turd, all style no substance, still poop underneath, Nog Grapes for big claims that shrivel up. You can also use the global Twitch emotes, vote yay and vote nay, and my vote meh, if you think it was just kind of a meh paper. Viper says, yeah, I liked it, solid, not groundbreaking. Yeah, I'm basically, this is just a, they decent and it was okay. Yeah, exactly. So I'm going to give this, I'm going to give it a little bit of Nog Navel. It's a little bit navel gazing, but I'm also going to give it a vote yay. Then, I feel like I might be able to do something else. Yeah. So a man knife and navel gazing. Yeah. This was good. I don't think it was great. I wouldn't expect the author to be this is the greatest thing ever, but then again, I don't feel like they fucked up anything either. Thank you for the follow. Yeah. So, is this solid sort of analytic-y style philosophy? Yeah, I'll give it a Nog Knife too. I think that's smart. Unreal Brian. Yeah. So, nothing too crazy, but then again, I don't think they fucked anything up either. At the end, they, expanded this. Look, we're talking about faith. We're going to talk about, some other things. Why does it matter? Let's see. Yeah, we talked about, what was this? Politics, faith, and then a few other things, just look, this matters in other areas too. So, yeah, Adam tuned in. Yeah, the vote yay didn't go through. I don't know. I'll fix that if, Adam, you need the initial V has to be capitalized too. If you want to fix it, you can, or else I'll fix it for you later. Yeah, capital V. But yeah, so if anyone wants to do it, and everyone here in chat, you are welcome to vote. This will go up on a website, and thank you, Adam. Kind of like Rotten Tomatoes or Metacritic, where you get to see all your rankings and all the stuff, and you get to see what myself and chat think of different philosophy papers. So this is a reasonably well-reviewed paper that we liked, and so this will be sort of towards the top of the well-liked papers. Then there's also stuff that was terrible we've read here, and those will all be at the bottom, or they'll be at the top of the shitty paper list. So, and that way people have an idea what's going on. All right, so yeah, you got one more minute. Get your answers in. If anyone else wants to do it, please do it, and I appreciate it. Yeah. And so thank you all for participating. You're a bit of an outlier, you guess. What do you mean? That's not that far out. You just put the meh as opposed to yay. That's not that. I also that's not too far. Thank you for the knife, Anti-Snowman. Appreciate the participation. So yeah, meh instead of yeah. In the grand scheme of this stuff, it's that's. The meh is in the middle. The yay is up here. It's you didn't put a nay. If you went nay on it, that would have been more outlier. But it's fine. Yeah. It's fine. You find account boring. This is, like we were saying, this is just bog standard like analytic philosophy, but it's not like just entirely navel gazing either. It's not the most exciting thing, but then again, I don't think it like was aspiring to be that crazy either. Yeah. Found stream using searching philosophy tag. Interesting stuff. Thank you. It's kind of what I do here. I mean, I am a published academic philosopher, and on stream I read and try to explain what is good or bad about published philosophy. So, and then we have a little ranking system here at the end. Yeah. Okay. So that's it for this. I appreciate everyone's participation.